But thank you everybody for listening into this session. I am Tommy Semero. I'm co-founder and chief product officer at RefAssured. I have an amazing panel with me today. I'd like to start with them and have you guys introduce yourself. Nikki, we'll start with you, then Andy, then Charlie. Really just want to hear your background with who your staffing agency is, as well as how long you've been in the industry.
Sure. So I've been with Applin for 16 years. Applin is started out as a Canadian staffing firm. We now do business in North America. I was a recruiter. I had the chance to lead a team, and now I look after our technology. It is a super rewarding role because technology is always changing, very exciting. We do just about every kind of staffing out there, with the exception of light industrial and healthcare.
Thank you, Nikki.
All right. I'm Andy Jones. I work for Medix, which is based out of Chicago. We have locations all across the United States and do a little bit of business up there in Canada with you, Nikki. We are primarily healthcare focused, although we do have we dip into other industries with the exception of also light industrial, and we do everything within healthcare with the exception of travel nursing. So don't touch into that area. But myself, I started out there as an IT recruiter for a couple of years. I've been there for close to 10 years now and am currently responsible for all of our technology that our producers, both delivery and sales, use, any integrations and partnerships we have with vendors, and a lot of our data quality and automations.
Fantastic.
And I'm Charlie Fossell. I'm the Chief Operations Officer of Tricom Technical Services. We're an IT staffing company based in Kansas City. We have an office in Minneapolis. All we do is technology. We've been in business for 30 years. I've been here for 12 years in my current role as the COO and as a partner. I've grown the company from about $7 million to $28 million in revenue. And we worked hard to build something that was sustainable and hopefully will continue into the many years into the future. I got my start in staffing in the late 90s as a salesperson, and that's my story.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you again for joining. We're going to cruise through some of the main topics today, all around quality of talent, how we might measure that talent, but also, even more importantly, how we differentiate our services and our talent from competitors in such a crowded market. And in a time where, last year was probably pretty rough for most, but as things start to bounce back, it's more important than ever to differentiate those services and find ways to counter or to take advantage of that. So without further ado, Nikki, I'd love to learn from you before RefAssured, but just in general, especially your experience in staffing. What challenges did you see in evaluating talent, especially in terms of the quality of that talent when presenting it to clients?
Sure, it's a great question. And I can speak to this with a little bit of credibility because, of course, I was on a desk way back when. I'm not going to say how many years ago. But we relied on live phone calls with actual referees, and also just that gut check, right? So we ideally would interview enough of a volume of people where we would get a sense of whether or not what we were hearing was accurate, and then we'd get a list of references and we'd have to call those references. So a tool like this, we didn't even know that something like that could be out there, an automated reference checking tool. And so not only did it change the amount of time now that we can spend client-facing, candidate-facing, but we now have this unbiased assessment and a series of, we always use standardized questions, but a series of questions that can really only be interpreted as they're written. And so it's changed things for us for sure. We always try to be careful in how we choose to automate to ensure that we're still keeping that human touch. But automated reference checking is a game changer.
Appreciate that. Nikki is now officially part of the marketing team as well. Charlie, how about you? I know when we first approached you, this wasn't on the radar at all, but how are you guys evaluating talent pre-RefAssured? What challenges did you face? And what was the focus?
Sure. So we've we've always been a pretty high touch firm. And so, in the past, we would meet people in person, do technical evaluations. We always did reference checks. We had a standard form that everybody filled out. And even though we had a standard form, we had somebody asking the questions. And a lot of times it was our junior, we called them associate recruiters. So the quality of the references often, depended a lot on who was asking the questions, how detailed the notes they took were, and how well they asked the questions. And the world's really changed a lot here, especially in the last 5 years, where, being a company based in Kansas City and Minneapolis, most of our candidates and the people that we had out billing were from those areas. And now I think we have people in 32 states, and so, we still try to maintain that high contact, high touch, interaction with our candidates and our clients. But, one of the things that we weren't looking for a tool to check references automatically. I'll be honest with you, I'm a little biased. I never believed people would actually respond to them. But we were looking for a tool that would help us with fraud. With people in different places, it was getting more difficult to tell if it was a real person, how many jobs they were working. I'm sure everybody's come across situations like that. So we started down the path of looking at a company that would check IP addresses, but was supposed to spot fraud in candidates. And that wasn't something that RefAssured even advertised. But I also heard from my recruiting team that they wanted, this was taking too much time, and they wanted to look at. They had talked to the same company with the fraud and would do the ref checks automatically. And at one of the conferences, somebody came up to me and said, "Well, I was looking at this company. I should check out the guys over at RefAssured." And so I had my leads do a demo of both. And they came back to me and said, "Oh, well, this actually does more for fraud than the other company's tool does. And it also, solicits a opt-in for the candidates. So it might generate more candidates, and it would provide some sales leads also, which we hadn't really thought of." And I was a little bit skeptical because I kept thinking, no one is ever going to fill these out. Our completion rate's pretty high on, because we literally chase people down. We're stalkers. We're trained stalkers. That's part of our world in staffing.
Sure.
But I think our completion rate now, and Tommy, am I right? It's like 87%.
Yep. You nailed it.
I mean, exactly, it's insane. Right. And I think we've got, I'm trying to think of the number. We've had several placements that were a result of candidates who have opted in. So there were a lot of things that we didn't expect. And I think probably the best part was the quality of the information that was provided in the reference checks. So the sort of free form where people are allowed to put in some additional information about the individual. Our salespeople use that to help build the story about the candidate. We use the references and the technical evaluations to help decide who we put in front of our client. But yeah, it's I almost hate being here because I'm afraid that now something that's differentiating us so much from our competitors will be a little more widespread. But I was really sort of surprised at how well it worked. And then it integrates with Bullhorn. And so it's less work for our recruiting team.
This summit is all about connected with Bullhorn. All three of your agencies operate on Bullhorn, and RefAssured is seeded by Bullhorn. They led our seed funding round. And so we have built a fairly deep integration. Thank you for touching on some huge points there, Charlie. You mentioned the people the references when they're filling out open-ended questions and just the level of detail they're putting in. And what that really does, and what we're seeing from customers like yours, is that information is coming directly from the reference, nothing lost in translation. And so now when you're presenting it to your clients, it is validated, it's unbiased, it's exactly what they wanted to share about that talent. And often it's very compelling and helpful information. So
yeah, and our saying here is, if it's not in Bullhorn, it didn't happen.
Exactly right. Andy, different ball game. I think we got in contact with you through old-fashioned cold call, and crazy enough, you knew about automated reference checking, and not only knew about it, you were trialing it for medics.
Yeah, no, you guys just caught us at the perfect time. So just kind of, I mean, we had similar practices to what Nikki and Charlie said. Pick up the phone, call the individual, do your best to chase them down. But something I wanted to mention quickly with the Bullhorn integration that I really like about RefAssured that differentiates the platform here is being able to differentiate the surveys that you have. So we're in technology, healthcare, scientific, a bunch of different lines of business. And whereas you're kind of limited with the reference template that exists in Bullhorn today, with RefAssured, you're not. You can create multiple different surveys to service your different teams or lines of business or geographies or what have you. So that definitely like leads to some differentiation there and allows for our teams to have a more customized experience. But yeah, we were in the process actually of acquiring our or attempting to acquire our certification with the Joint Commission. And if anybody here is not familiar with that, the Joint Commission is an organization that gives you a certification that is indicative of high-level patient care standards and just really a lot of aspects of administration and quality to indicate that your organization follows these with the ultimate goal to lead away from zero harm to patients. So, you know, within nursing, for example, that's a lot of like professional development units and certifications and a bunch of other things. But part of that was having a reference checking system that was consistent, time-stamped, validated, and officially, you know, placed within the system, not something subjective that a recruiter would have done over the phone and then like manually entered into a form. So we were actually in the process of trialing that with a competitor of RefAssured's that starts with the letter X. So you could probably figure out which one I'm talking about. But you know, RefAssured kind of came in at the perfect time, fortunately for both of us, and you know, really impressed me with the integration, the dynamic system, their willingness to customize some things for us, and also develop new features and kind of the turnaround on that for some of the things we discussed. So yeah, really was integral in our journey to acquire our Joint Commission certification, which the end of that story is we did and have since had it audited and reviewed and received no recommendations from our auditors, which is about as good as you could do in that process. And part of that was definitely the quality of references and both consistency, formatting, and validity that RefAssured provided.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Andy. It was a different journey, but I'm glad you're able to touch on those points, just the compliance aspects. You know, when Nikki, when talking to you, you know, the compliance aspect isn't, you know, the main focus, but you do, as a level of service you provide to your clients at Applin, you know, you look at not just the resume and the bias that comes with that. You've always guaranteed more in that quality that you've provided them. Just wanted to touch on one piece once we got into this. We have a long history. You trusted us over at Compass Technology, our previous venture in ATS. That was competing with Bullhorn and Aviante, among others. You were essential to how we built out that application. And so we contacted you early on about RefAssured, knowing that if there's something going on in tech, you're probably aware of it and have probably even evaluated it. What were you skeptical of first when we contacted you? And what has pleasantly surprised you, I guess?
Yeah, skeptical is a good word, actually, because I feel like this wasn't on our radar at all. And there is good history there because you guys have a brilliant team. And so there was confidence that whatever you were building probably made sense and it was well thought out. So yeah, we got to participate as a beta tester and see what this would look like, because our teams relied on some of those direct conversations with referees to generate new sales opportunities or to create new candidates. And so lo and behold, you guys had also already worked that into the tool as well. So we weren't missing out on the chance to get a new lead or get a new candidate created. It was built right into the end. So I think that the biggest thing was changing behaviors, right? People are creatures of habit. And, you know, where do we introduce this and who do we introduce it to and how is it going to be received? And all of those things turned out to be just really easy answers. So, you know, when it comes to measuring the quality of talent, references are so important as a step in the process. It's written right into our contracts that we are going to complete 2 references. It didn't necessarily say how we were going to complete them. And so now we have this chance. We had the chance to kind of run them side by side, and just the time savings alone, I think our adoption was pretty high.
Love it. Thank you for sharing. Charlie, along those notes, previously thinking about just traditional method of reference checking, what you thought of probably before we contacted you, and maybe even when we first contacted you, when we said we automate reference checks, you just kind of think about this traditional method, the one we've always known, the scheduling, the phone calls, the notes, the putting it all together, everything that comes with it. What surprised you? But what would you say to folks who today pretty much don't do references anymore because it just became something that, there's not much in it for a candidate. If anything, candidates are trying to do it at the last moment because they know their references are going to be bothered with scheduling. They know it's a check the box function for the recruiter unless they can get really good past performance data, which we know is extremely time consuming if doing over the phone. What would you say has surprised you there, and to those who are, looking at it or just dropped reference checking altogether?
Well, I think the thing that surprises me the most is the amount of detail that comes out in those references. And we really have not had any experiences where, the reference became a liability, that was, one reference might elevate another candidate above another candidate that we might be comparing for a position. But for the candidate themselves too, at the end of the day, the goal is to put somebody in a position where they can be successful. And, hopefully we've told a good enough story about the opportunity that we have, the job, and our client, and vice versa. We've got to tell a story about the candidate. I mean, these are people. So if you can bring life to that piece of paper that's a resume, the amount of talking about the fraud, in just candidates, the competition and what people do in terms of, how they provide candidates to the client. Sometimes it's little more than a couple LinkedIn exchanges. Hey, I got this job. Hey, what does it pay? What do you need? And there's no validation of who is this person? What can we do to help that individual get to a better place for their career, where they want to go? And how can we represent that person in a way that gives them the best chance to be able to have the opportunity that, hopefully furthers their career. So I think it brings a little more of that human element, the part that people should be hiring, the who, into the equation. And the crazy thing is it's automated, and yet it makes it more personable. So here we are in the 22nd century.
You touch on an important point to us there, just the candidate experience. We've just felt, and especially from your feedback and Nikki being a beta tester, that we needed to find, if this was going to work, we needed there to be something in it for the candidate. It couldn't be the old way of doing references. And so we felt with modernizing it, we could show them, hey, no one's going to be harassing your references anymore. The information we gather is actually going to highlight your experience, and it's going to be accurate. So that in itself should separate you and put you in the best place for your next opportunity. Thank you guys for helping us get in that direction. Nikki, I wanted to go back to one other piece, because you were actually the first person who brought this to us. And this was a light bulb moment for us. And you mentioned that there were clients in Canada who said, you know what, we're required to provide references from a third party. They don't want us to produce those references. And to us, it's like, well, that'd be great if that was the situation. But what we didn't realize is there's actually a ton of value for the agency in always providing third-party references. I just wanted you to be able to speak to that and why that comes up, and then maybe when you use it, even when it's not needed or required.
Well, I think just, speaking to, we're going to be celebrating our 50th anniversary actually as a firm next year, which is a really big deal. And, with that, there's our reputation and there's integrity and there's all kinds of things. So it's not necessarily that it's legally required for us to do it here. We do put it into all of our contracts, but we also want to be able to stand behind the candidates that we're putting forward. So even if a client would say to us, I don't need references, it's kind of this funny process where the person that they're going to give you is always going to give a good result, things like that. We like to ensure that we're connecting with supervisors as well. It's not necessarily going to be a peer. It's not going to be a friend. It's not going to be a coworker. And so, the nice thing is, even if it isn't something necessarily that gets shared with the final client, we can rest easy knowing that we've done our due diligence and that the individuals that we're putting out there are as strong as what we've said, because at the end of the day, we want them to come back to us again to find them somebody else. So I don't know if that necessarily answers the question that you were asking, but that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Yeah, no, thank you. That was just a huge moment for us, because now we hear every day customers who are telling us, hey, I shared the report, mentioned that it's generated from a third party. It's independent data. It doesn't include the classic recruiter bias. The client looks at it in a new light. It's supporting what the agency already feels about that applicant in many ways, but just being more transparent. Andy, wanted to talk about, even if it's unrelated to RefAssured, just some of the ways Medix uses data to make some of the decisions you guys make, especially as it pertains to talent decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, going along with what Nikki said there. So that's something that we've had too, where we'll start including those reference reports, and it's, clients go, oh, okay, this is different, and they'll start requesting that in the future. So it's definitely added some value there for us, as well as helping us remain compliant with all of the contracts we have, because we require to as well, just like you all do. So, but as far as data-backed decision-making, something I look at a lot in my role is, talent supply, and then the return on investment for the different tools and applications we're using. So whether that be, your traditional job boards, et cetera, and looking at what our return there is, but also then finding ways to indicate sources for tools like RefAssured, where kind of Charlie mentioned earlier, some of the unintended benefit for us as well was having additional candidates opt in, as well as potential opportunities for sales opting in, and being able to sort of customize those messages based on our different surveys that we're sending out. We've found that we can get really targeted with the kinds of managers that are completing references for us. And, that's definitely led to some sales calls and placements as well for us, of people that have come in directly from the platform. So that's certainly a big way that, we leverage data within our role. And I mean, I don't think that's, reinventing the wheel there. You look at ROI, but like I said, we were really looking at RefAssured and third-party reference checking platforms in general for compliance reasons specific to the Joint Commission. And then kind of where I've been able to say, okay, this is not only great for us from an integration standpoint, user adoption's good, and then the recruiters seem to love it, but look at all this extra gravy that we get on here from these additional candidates or potential sales leads that are coming in through the platform as a bonus.
Awesome. Thank you, Andy. I want to pivot slightly into the future. Some things RefAssured is focused on. Get your guys' feedback if you see value in it. Some of you won't be surprised by this, especially Nikki. But we focus on what we call quality of talent. That's what we're speaking to most of this call so far. Just the ability to evaluate talent outside of a resume, basically learning their experience and skills through the eyes of folks they worked with before they get hired. But there is this point of data that we'd love to learn post-hire, and we call that quality of hire data. And so RefAssured's mission would be, while doing reference checks is awesome, a follow-up would be, as these contractors of yours are coming off assignment, to gather new references, updated references. A lot of reasonings, a lot of benefits we feel behind that. But Nikki, wanted to start with you and see what your interest would be there, and our ability to then know when your contractors are coming up on assignment and being able to gather updated references and what that could do.
Yeah, I mean, for us, this is a no-brainer. It's something I think that we might have even requested along the way. And you guys are pretty famous for being an innovative group. I think even, way back when we were first introduced and working with you through the ATS that you guys had developed, there was constant innovation. And so that was one thing I knew that we could count on, is that even though this is, in principle, kind of a simple function of the search process is getting references done, that you guys would kind of think of everything. And this, to me, the redeployment is a big topic. And so it's a really nice way to get candidates redeployed with customers that we already work with, because it's not the candidate anymore that's giving us the references. So, in the event that that becomes part of the product roadmap, and as candidates are coming off of assignment, we can automate having another reference done with somebody who we already work with. Like, that's a pretty powerful thing to be able to take to market. And then to have it all right back into the system. I know one thing that hasn't come up, just again from an innovation standpoint, is like, at what point do we do references? But you guys are even integrating with all of the latest technologies in Bullhorn, as far as the onboarding talent edition and things like that. Like, you're just making it really easy to be able to have that triggered at so many different spots. And so it's kind of nice to have it come full circle, and towards the end to be able to have another iteration of feedback that, again, validates we picked the right person, you've really liked that person, and now this is a great chance for us to take them to market again and put them back out.
Love it. Yeah, and good point about some of those other integrations. Thank you for mentioning those. If we were to put this package for redeployment together, it could go right into Candidly and be part of that redeployment process. And we do integrate with them, among others. Charlie, for you and the team, that ability to redeploy, what we learn and see every day is, you have this rare opportunity where your agency is the only one that knows when this contract's ending with this talent. That's the talent that you're employing and working with. So that ability to redeploy them is essential to you guys, and any ability to improve that is huge for the business. But there's also another aspect, that ability to show your client, even prospective clients, how that talent is performing, that talent you spent so much time working with. How do you foresee that ability to evaluate the talent for your clients that you're already working with to build out that relationship, but then maybe even use it for prospective ones?
Yeah, it's huge. Redeployment, I mean, it lowers the cost of acquisition for a candidate considerably. I talked earlier in one of the other examples that, when we're presenting a candidate, we're really telling a story. Now, when we can draw that story back to a current or previous client and show that this is not some stranger we just picked up off the street and are going to drop off on your doorstep. This is somebody who we have experience with, that we believe in, that we know. I think it creates a whole different level of value for both the candidate and for our clients, and obviously for us as well. And in addition to that, it really generates a positive sentiment from the candidates. One of the big things that you hear, our business is built around contract and contract for hire. And, we always tell people that, yeah, you can take a direct placement, and there's really not that much more security there, because, yeah, it's direct, but you're on your own. You're going to go into one of our clients where we have people, where we have relationships, where we can be an advocate for you. And at some point when this ends, we know who you are. We know what you want to do. We can help you get to the next level or to the new technology or whatever it is that you want to do, because we're going to do a better job of telling your story. And so, that generates very positive reviews from our candidates, which is really important to us, especially now with the world, the borders being broken down, that, we're doing business with people that we're not necessarily in the same geographical area, and they can go out there and see all these positive reviews out there from candidates who've had great experiences working with TRICOM. The value is, it's a lot more than just the redeploying a candidate. It's the overall impression of your company, the people can see from the outside. It's much easier to sell that candidate, understand what it is that they want, and just the cost of acquisition is a lot lower. It's not 10 candidates to get to one who you believe in. It's, hey, we've got this person, where are we going to put them? And it works out well.
More efficient way to scale the business, for sure.
Much more efficient.
Andy, Nikki kind of broached this with some of the places we're integrating, and of one of them in particular. We went outside of Bullhorn for this piece because you guys built your own onboarding solution or candidate-driven solution. Wanted to just bring that up and ask you what value you see in the ability for candidates to actually drive the process.
I'd love to talk to that, Tommy. Yeah, so we built a onboarding and submission platform, in all honesty, similar to Candidly a year or two before Candidly went to market. And I, with the amount of time and upkeep that we've had to do, it's unfortunate that we didn't have the opportunity to purchase something like their excellent platform back then. But we've chosen the route we have, and it's something that we're continuing to maintain and update. And as part of that, we worked with Tommy and team at RefAssured to integrate the solution within that platform as well. The problem that we had was, we would have talent apply to a job, register on our system, and then opt into filling out all their profiles, things like that, providing their references via the old way where it would kind of populate the tabs in Bullhorn. And then, they would go down the process and they'd get to that point, and then they would be asked to provide their references again via RefAssured. And we saw the disjoint there, and we got feedback from our talent that was like, hey, I thought I already gave you this information. So we were able to integrate our platform with RefAssured so that when they provide their references in our platform, it will kick off the RefAssured, reference acquisition process from there directly, as well as in Bullhorn if our candidates or if our recruiters want to manually launch it for somebody that hasn't registered on our site. So we have it covered from both angles there. And I know that's actually probably one of the leading causes of volume now that we have through the platform. It's been doing really well. And, that completely eliminated all of the complaints that we got from talent, because again, it's just a seamless experience now where, and some of the benefits there too, especially if things get denied or, there's some sort of issue getting in contact with their reference, the self-contained loop allows the talent to control that process, add additional people or references to their ones they've provided. And it's all really just self-contained and nice and concise. And then our recruiters know when the process is done, and we can continue on with our days with either 0 seconds of work if they set it up themselves, or, less than a minute if the recruiters are going to launch it on their own. So it's certainly been a huge time savings there. And that just speaks to the innovation and collaboration that Tommy and the RefAssured team do with, the requests that we have. I know Nikki touched on this a lot, but there's been things, been saying, hey, it'd be great if we could do this, X, Y, Z. And it's never a no, or that's on the roadmap, or it's like, hey, let's chat that, let's talk about that and get it written up and put it on the roadmap. And usually sooner rather than later, that's coming out in a new release. So definitely one of the most collaborative and innovative partners I've had the opportunity to work with in the 8+ years that I've been in my role here.
Thank you. You guys are way too kind. This is amazing. That was an eye-opening experience for us too. We truly didn't know what the volume would be. And it started to look like, for every reference request a recruiter would do, the talent platform you guys have created is producing 5x that, maybe even more at this point. So super eye-opening to see what happens when you let the talent decide their own experience. And that also led us to the next piece I'll mention briefly with Bullhorn automation. We are in beta with that, and we'll be betaing that with some of you, essentially allowing you to set rules for when reference requests should just automatically go out, whether it's when they should go out for certain clients at a specific time or just overall for your agency. So excited to get there. Nikki, I'm going to go back to a main topic of this panel just on differentiation. It is a really challenging thing to do. I've been a recruiter, I've been in sales, I've been a part of a couple agencies. And if someone asked me, how did we differentiate ourselves? I would have just given a wordy answer. And that's what we typically hear. I think Aplin's done a tremendous job on creating differentiation. So we'd love to hear how you guys look at that, what it is. And most importantly, just, mostly along those lines. Yeah.
That's okay. I'm happy to elaborate. First, I do think that we have an amazing team. So it starts with having the right people in your organization. And then from there, really my role is connected to tech. And there's technologies out there that I think takes what starts with a really great team and then allows us to differentiate. Because we can speak till the cows come home about why we're different or why we're great or why we're this or why we're that. But the proof is in the pudding. So, there are tools out there where we can use this in an RFP response to say, this is why we're different, because it's important to us to make certain that we're representing the right candidates, but we've done it in such a way where it's unbiased, it's standardized, There's the proctoring to make certain that you're getting the people that you think that you're getting. It's speed to market as well. There's quality in that for sure. So I like Charlie's expression that we tell a story about a candidate. I mean, we're telling a story about ourselves as well. And I think investing in the right technology in the right ways makes a really big difference, right? Like we have Staffing Future that does our website. So that's the first interaction that a candidate would get. And then, the reference checking process would come in before we place them. And then after we place them, we have great recruiters that goes out and says, did we do a good job? So it's like all of those little bits and pieces we can then take to market to say, don't take our word for it. Like, look at everything together as a story. And, it kind of speaks for itself.
Love it. For those listening, if you haven't vetted the options out there, I guarantee you Nikki has through and through. So when she mentions Jack and team over there at Staffing Future and Laura Full over there at Great Recruiters, amazing options out there that you should definitely check out if you haven't. Charlie, wanted to speak to differentiation for you guys as well. We learned from you early on that you understand talent is where you separate your guys from the pack. We often speak to various parts of an agency, but at the end of the day, it's the talent and how you guys separate yourselves, which is, I think, why we were able to find a great partnership together. So wanted to hear what Tricom's focus is and how you guys differentiate yourselves.
Yeah, to our, it's interesting. It's like a restaurant. We always make jokes about, you can go to the finest dining restaurant, or you can go into, the little shack on the corner, and probably the same company's delivered food to both of those places. There's things that happen in the kitchen that you maybe don't want to see. It's all in the presentation. And so our biggest way that we differentiate ourselves, we're a very high contact firm, both with our clients and with our candidates. And I talked about telling a story, but the other part that is really important, and Nikki brought it up too, with some of the companies that she referenced that they interact with, we want other people to tell our story. So if we can create a great experience for our candidates and our clients, they're going to tell our story. And that's a lot more powerful than, us trying to say things like, oh, we have really great people. Oh, we can do this. Or it comes down to, I've heard this a few times, but it's not what you say, it's what others say about you when you're not in the room. And that's sort of the thing that we're trying to create is, at scale, which is the hard part. That's where the automation really makes a difference. Because I'm not sure what the audience is in terms of size of your company, but, there's everything out there from, somebody working out of their basement to, giant shops that have very little very little personalization that are, just forwarding resumes and everything in between. And so, we want people to be able to have a great experience working with us, and we want to do it at scale. Everybody you hire adds a unique flavor, internally to your company. But if you have some pieces around it that provide a framework, you can deliver that experience consistently. And in doing that, you get all the different personalities, and at the same time, you get a consistent delivery method and a consistent interaction with your candidates, and they do tell a great story about you, and that builds your business.
As an outsider but a partner, it was really evident you guys have done a great job of that. I think everybody experienced some clients who had layoffs, but with some of your clients, they stuck through with you guys and working just with you in many cases. And for those who did have layoffs, the second they were hiring again, they went right back to you. And you've just had various clients that, have stayed with you guys through and through, no matter the scenario. So testament to the services you're providing. Andy, wanted to round things out a bit. We have 5 minutes, might open it for Q&A or see if there's any questions there, but just wanted to get your advice to peers, those listening, whether they're on the healthcare side or not, or whether they're in tech, but if they're just open to the idea of automated reference checking, what your advice would be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll add quickly too for the kind of the last question there. We've found a lot of success in adding what reporting looks like from RefAssured in different RFP decks and presentations that we have as we make to different clients. So there's another way that you can kind of communicate the value and differentiation there. But as far as is automated reference checking, like Charlie mentioned earlier, I wasn't super convinced on it. I was really looking more at the compliance aspect of things. And, what we found was that we've had tremendous adoption. We have several hundred recruiters, and our utilization is in a high percentile, and we're running a ton of references through the platform now. And really, what I would say is do your references with your peers, and, reach out to the vendors you're engaging with and say, hey, who else are you working with that's on Bullhorn, and can I talk to them? And ask those, be honest and direct with those questions. Obviously, again, with all references, they're probably going to provide you with people that'll say good things about them. But in doing those conversations, what I found is when you bring up those other companies you might be looking at, or really vetting that out, we're all kind of in the same boat. We've all done the same sorts of implementations and research, and people are going to shoot straight with you. And that's how I felt even better going with RefAssured, because, I heard really good things about the team's, response times, collaboration, innovation, etc. So that would be my advice is spend that extra week, make those calls, and do that last layer of research to get references on potentially a reference checking platform. If we're going to go meta.
Thank you, Andy. Nikki, any parting words of advice?
I just think be open to it, right? We didn't know what we didn't know. We didn't know something like this even existed. We were struggling with that balance between the human touch and where automation fits in. I think that that's always going to be a thing, because we're in the business of getting to know people and representing people. So it has to make sense. And this tool, this reference checking tool did, because it allows our recruiters to recruit more. It allows our account managers to see the people that are important to them. And it takes an important step of the process and still allows it to take place, but now in a much more controlled way.
Thank you. Charlie, any final words? You've touched on some great things, but
the big thing for us, and the reason it worked so well, was how involved you all were in helping us get it set up and answering questions and dealing with issues. That's part of it. You buy a tool and, it goes in the toolbox. We got a couple tools I'm trying to figure out how to cancel subscriptions on. The ultimate success really relies on how involved the support is from the company that is providing that service or that tool. So that was all the difference, or that was a huge difference maker for us in terms of it working, and it works. I mean, we have references for pretty much everybody that goes through the door, and we don't have any issues other than the ones that people.
No issues.
Sorry.
Well, no, I love it. Thank you guys for being so generous with your time, sharing your experience. We feel we have a lot of work to do, but we're so fortunate to have customers like you that make building our product roadmap, especially me being on the product side, make my job so much easier. All I have to do is get on the line with you guys and hear how it's going. So really appreciate that. I can't wait for what we're going to do in this new year. But yeah, cheers to everyone. Thank you for attending the session. Please, always.
I was just going to say, I know there's been a lot of talk about the three of us being on Bullhorn, and this wasn't mentioned, is it works amazing as a standalone tool. When we first started beta testing, we weren't connected into Bullhorn. And so I think, you don't have to have a certain ATS to find the right reference checking partner either. So I forgot to mention that. I meant to mention that earlier. So I'm glad I snuck that in at the end.
I'm glad you did too. Yes, we do work. We try to be agnostic and work with every application possible. So thank you for help driving us there through that beta program. Andy, through your own proprietary application. It's been huge.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Great seeing y'all. We'll chat soon.